1105. Now I'm BC. This is Spirit Cars. We're brought to you by SpiritCars.com, and we're doing a little different. Technology's like moving ahead, going ahead, and we've been doing a Facebook Live at 1105 for quite some time now. And we have done literally hundreds of videos, and they've been posted on YouTube, and they've been posted on blogs, and they've been posted on Facebook, and they've been posted everywhere, and some of them haven't even been posted. They're in CDs and what have you. We're going to change up our format a little bit. Instead of doing a Facebook Live every day, Facebook just runs it down, and then the next day and the next day, and then it's all gone pretty much after a week. YouTube, we can meta tag it, we can label it, you can search it. They'll be much easier to find later on. So that's our reason for doing that. We've got two channels, and we've had two channels on YouTube for quite some time. I think I looked at it the other day, or Josh looked at it the other day, and our oldest video on YouTube right now is 10 years old. So we've been doing this quite a long time. In internet years, that's a long time. And we've been on the internet. We've had my email address I've had since '94. So I may not be a tech guy, but we're trying to stay up with what's current and how it's working. So the reason for the change is because it will be much easier to search. And what we're going to do is we'll take this video and post this video onto our Facebook page. And then from the Facebook page, you can still see it, but you'll be watching it on YouTube. So the channel for this is going to be T-Bucket TV. That's our channel for YouTube. And we also have Spirit Cars as the channel that we have on YouTube. And I'm going to really split them up. So today we're working on Docks 23T. We're doing brake lines. So if I'm doing something T-Bucket related, we're going to put it on T-Bucket TV. And if it's a general, just anything else automotive is going to go on Spirit Cars. Just an FYI. So if you want to watch these programs live, you probably should subscribe to Facebook or YouTube, to T-Bucket TV. And I believe we put a link on our Facebook page yesterday that told you how to subscribe, and we'll keep doing that until we get it kind of evened out. I believe there's comments in this section underneath us here, and we will start watching that. I was kind of looking at it and seeing how it worked. I noticed there was a comment from about 3 years ago that I had never seen before, saying that they enjoyed the what's it called, the vlog, I think. They like the vlogs. Why don't I do vlogs or keep it up or whatever? And I just never even seen that. But we will pay attention to the comments on the bottom so we can start running it just like we're doing Facebook. And enough talking. So I'll just start talking about a car. How's that sound? We got Docks 23. Doc wanted it primered, so we got the body primered. The frame here is powder coated. We've really extended the kick up on the chassis. It's he's going to have a wooden stake box back here. This is technically a chassis that would work for a C-cab, but he's got an extended 23 body. He's going to go on it, and a stake box in the back. Sort of a little bit different in the front with the unisteer and things like that. But anyway, we're putting brakes on it. That's what we're doing today, and it's not done, but we're moving towards it. I guess we can start. Let's start with the master cylinder. All right, so this has got a master cylinder with a booster. You'll have to have some vacuum to your booster. So if you've got some crazy motor with no vacuum, you know, it might not be the best choice. It's just an assist. It helps you push, you know, your cylinder in and create the hydraulics. So a vacuum helps work that. You need to have for the booster. And this is the master cylinder. I believe this master cylinder is off an old Corvette, and this is like a aftermarket booster, 7-inch booster. You can get the same effect if you're we use a Mustang 2 master cylinder if we're not going to go with power brakes. It's all about leverage. So you can see the brake pedal here. If I had this longer and had my pin right down here, I would get much less leverage, but we've moved it up pretty high. So you get a lot of leverage. So whether you have a power brakes or standard brakes on the T-Bucket, with this setup, with this leverage, you can kind of see the distance here. There's, what is that, about 2 inches from center of where it pivots to where it's going to pivot on the rod. And there's a push rod that'll go in there, which is pretty much right here. On the brake booster, we've got to have it offset a little bit. If it was just a regular master cylinder, it'll sit in farther. We could use a straight rod. But since the booster's sitting in a little bit, so I've offset the rod. When you put it in, this will just screw into that. This comes down, so that screws in. There'll be a rod end on this side. Keep everything nice and tidy and parallel, and then that'll push in. As you push that in, hydraulics, basically the principle of hydraulics, if the line is full with air, air will compress a little bit. Hydraulics, when you push it in with the hydraulics, it just pushes that fluid all the way to, in the front, we've got a caliper, and you can see this little puck here. This is a cylinder. There's a banjo bolt that's going to go on here. Let me see if I've got that here. Somewhere, anyway. You have a banjo bolt that bolts onto here, and what the banjo bolt is, it's just it looks like a banjo. Well, I wish I had one. We're totally prepared. And then there's a bolt that goes through to hold that in, and then there's a kind of a hole in the bolt so that when you tighten the bolt through the threads, the fluid can come through the bolt, go into the banjo, come out, and then we've got a threaded or a braided line that will attach to the banjo, and then the fluid will just go through the banjo, through the bolt, into this little cylinder here, and it will push this puck out. And as it pushes this puck out, there's two brake pads that are between here, and it pushes the brake pads together, pushing this side out. Only the whole caliper will slide over onto the rotor. This goes up into here, so it slides all the way over onto the rotor. Both sides pushing, grabs your front. Now the back is a different setup. It's a drum setup. In case you didn't, the two pads go between there, so then it pushes and holds the rotor, but there'll be two pads in there. The back is a little different, and this is definitely 101 brakes here. Same principle, hydraulics, it pushes. This is a wheel cylinder right here. You can see both ends of the wheel cylinder's got a little push rod coming out of it. When that push rod gets full with fluid, it will push these two pads apart. And there's a drum that goes on here, and the brake, it will rub right here and here. And as it rubs on there, it creates the friction and it stops the car. There's a couple ways you can come around the back. If we're doing a disc brake setup, a lot of times we'll do run the line around the frame and then just go ahead and run it out each side with a braided line. On this one, what we'll do is we've run both lines on the back. We've come to a T, and we'll go in that T, we'll run a braided line coming up into the frame here, and then we've got one line coming back that'll go into the junction right here, and it's teed down there. The other way you could do it, you could run both lines onto the frame, tee it up here, run one down and go around and run one down with two braided lines. Coming out of the master cylinder, you've got a front and you've got a rear. So coming to the front, I mean, there'll be a lot of debate where the proportioning valve goes. On a T-bucket, by experience, I mean, it needs to go where it needs to go. You know, a lot of times you can write a mathematical theory for something and say that's proof that it's going to work. No, it works when it works. So the front of a T-bucket is so light that you don't want your front brakes locking up before your back brakes. What'll happen is if you're on gravel, your front brakes will just lock up and it'll push. Or if you're like in a garage like this with a slick floor, your front brakes will lock up and it'll push. You won't be able to steer and the car is just going to be pushing down the road. So what we're going to want to do, this little knob here cuts the flow of the brake fluid to the front. So we're going to cut the flow down. We're going to restrict the flow so it's going to have an easier flow to the back than the front. And then basically the goal is you want your both brakes, front and the back, to be stopping at relatively the same time. That way your car is going to stop even, and you're not going to either lock up your back brakes and your fronts still be rolling, or lock up your fronts and the back still roll. Unless you're wanting to do a burnout, you might want to put a lockout, but that would be a whole different story, which we're not getting into. Couple ways to do brake lights. You're going to have to know whether or not your brakes are on if you're going to turn the brake lights on. It's just a switch. When the switch is closed, the power goes to the brake lights come on. When the switch is open, power don't go to the brake lights aren't on. So there's two ways you can do that. You can do it with a mechanical switch, and if this body was on here and the car was on here, there'd be the floor would be kind of like this. When your brake pedal come down all the way to the floor, you could have a switch with just an arm on it, and it would activate that arm, and as it activated the arm, that would turn the brake lights on. And if you're going to do it that way, switches back from like, I know from like 50 Chevy trucks, it's a good switch with a nice long arm. You could bolt that on there. There's a lot of different ones available, but we definitely like to use a pressure switch. So what this is, we put just a T in here, run it on the, doesn't really matter what side, it's going to know when there's pressure in the brake lines, and when the pressure is in the brake lines, it's going to close the switch, and you're just running a wire and just breaking the wire and putting two connectors on there, put it on. So when the switch is closed, it connects the two wires together, your brake lights come on. When the switch is open, lights are off, brake lights are off. Pretty simple. Don't forget to put a brake switch in. We take and split it in the front back here. So you see the splitter, the T. I'm running half my brake lines down the right side and half my brake lines down the left side. I just, personally, I'd like it, it's cleaner looking in the front. Now, it's not a problem if you would take your brake lines and run them up to here and split it here and go one down to your caliper on this side and run around the front and take the other one that way. Two options, either one will work. We use a through frame fitting. It's just kind of clean. If you're going to do a Spirit car and a Spirit chassis, I would just recommend, I would say absolutely don't even think twice about not doing it this way. Put the through frame fitting up on the top of the frame. If you get it down too low, you hit a significant bump. It's possible that your radius rod, or in this case it's a 4-link, could hit your braided line and could break the break it right there, and you would lose your front brakes. You wouldn't lose your back brakes, and it wouldn't be like you couldn't stop, but it wouldn't be a great thing either. Fundamentals, it's brakes 101. Hydraulics, there's no pressurizing it like air. That's the problem if you've got air in the line. That's why your brakes don't work, so you got to bleed the air out. A couple ways to do that. I think that would be a good topic for a whole show once it's all set up. And we might do that with this one tomorrow. The brakes should be done. We might show you how to bleed the brakes and show you the rest of it. So that's it for today. So if you're new to our YouTube live at 11:05, welcome. Another thing, this randomly goes out to the world, so I'm not sure how much longer if it even does it, but when YouTube first started doing live, they had a map and you could see how many places were live. Now there's probably so many that the map would just be one color and you wouldn't be able to find anything. So I don't know if you can do it that way, but if we start trending and people start watching, I'm sure it gets better placement. I don't know about the whole analytics of YouTube, but again, T-Bucket TV, if you're liking what you see, subscribe to it, and they'll probably let you know when we go live. If you want to go live, do comment. We will check the comments. We will post this on Facebook. So if you see it on Facebook, you can still comment there, and we'll follow up with the comments, as Melissa's in charge of making sure we find out everywhere that there are comments. So Melissa's the face behind the camera there that you can't see. So she'll stay on top of that. Other than that, what do we do? We usually finish these little shows with some words of wisdom. And since I'm not the brightest guy, I didn't go to a whole lot of school, just barely what was mandatory. I'm going to go to someone who's a whole lot smarter than me, and that would be Solomon. Wrote this a long time ago. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs, and today is?
The 23rd.
The 23rd. So we'll just get something out of the 23rd. Let's see what he's got to say, the 23rd chapter. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are a man given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding. Cease. We could just go on and on and on, and I'm not going to add to that. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we will again be on YouTube. We'll try to get this organized. YouTube has the ability to edit to and do the search words. So that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow.